Tēnā tātou katoa e nau mai ki tēnei wiki o te kōrero toi. Just welcome everybody who's joined us today, and just to introduce two amazing artists, but I'd just really like to welcome you, James and Papatami, to this space, this virtual space, where people are able to get an insight into your mahi and your background. And I know there's so many people really excited to hear what you have to say about your mahi. You both have a long and strong history in Te Ao Toi, but not only that, in Māori movements of people, of not only art, but of self-autonomy, and where I'm just really keen to hear what's going to come out of this kōrero today. So firstly, we'll just pass it over to James Ormsby. I'll just do a little quick introduction. So James is Ngāti Maniapoto, Waikato, Te Aroa and Kotimana. He received the Master of Fine Arts from RMIT and a Bachelor of Education from the University of Melbourne. And upon returning to New Zealand, he was commissioned to paint AUT's whare meeting house in the ceiling design and artwork for the RNZ Navy whare. Now, drawing is a passion for James Ormsby, and those of you who know his work will know the intricacies of his mahi. Also, James has a long history with Māori art movements such as Te Wānau Aotearoa, which he was mentioning just previous to this, to us joining up today. But rather than me stumble through everything, I think I'll just pass it over to you, James, and you can share your kōrero. Tēnā koe hoa.
Tēnā kōrero, mihi Regan, for setting up this kōrero te atinga, and tēnā koe Tama, e rangatira, honoured to be with you here, and hi all. I'll just talk a little bit about my practice and what I've been up to lately. There's probably three things I want to discuss with my own practice. I do a discipline based. My art practice comes from a discipline of life drawing, which gives me a confidence that when I want to do something realistic, it can be realistic. And also a Zen practice of doing Enzo circles with shumi ink that I make. That also settles me down and helps me work on those metaphysical things when you want to do that. Those are the two base disciplines. And then I was just talking to Tama actually about Selwyn Muru. Selwyn Muru, at a wānanga I was with once called me and a few others like us, Ngāti Whiriki, meaning the freaks from the outside, who, I wasn't brought up on marae. I don't kōrero Māori. I've been trained in very Western artistic wānanga art school, which I can whakapapa back through my apprentice masters, 17 generations, back to Raphael and Leonardo da Vinci, through the schools in Europe by Richardson, Tovey, Selwyn, then to Bucknan, who taught me. So I come from the freaks, and Selwyn Muru called us that group. Michael Caboti also, I met Michael Caboti. He's a Hopi Indian artist, very good man. When I first came back to New Zealand, he called us jesters. We're the ones who sort of perhaps don't understand tikanga, but we can joke and run around the edges, and we offer another color on the spectrum of Māori art. I treat it very much like a braided river. I think Hamish Keith referred to it as a braided river, an awa, and probably it is a good metaphor for Māori art. There's a main stream of the awa, but then there's all these tributaries and braided rivers and spectrums, and It's such an honor to be here with Tama, because we're probably not mainstream contemporary Māori artists. Tama's an obvious activist and well recognized in most political areas. I come in as a Ngāti Whiriki from like Robinson and other artists. We're just a small little stream on that big movement, that big awa of Māori art. Yeah, I better show 2 pictures. I'll just try and bring up shared screen here.
James, I remember one time you talking about when you were learning to draw or you were studying, and you were told to draw an apple.
Yeah.
Sounds like a pretty ruthless way to learn, but really effective.
Yeah, some of my students at the early one, I would remember I'd blindfold them, put on Zen music for 3 hours just to upset them, blindfolded, and they never saw the object. They'd have to hold an apple, a roll of toilet paper, a nail, and they had to fill up a sketchbook, never seeing the object, just feeling it, and see what marks they made on the paper. And of course, after 10 minutes of grizzling, you settle into a quiet groove, and by the 50th drawing, there's some amazing interpretations of what a roll of toilet paper actually is, and what a nail actually is, and what an apple actually is. Yeah, so you do these exercises to challenge the marks you make. Yeah, that's why I stick mainly to paper. I find it a very honest medium. I've tried. I was just talking about working on steel. I've tried stone and steel, but I'm too soft.
Are you not?
But yeah. So this one here, this work here is called Mangatotiri with Enzo. I just finished it a few days ago. It's for the Mangatotiri reserve.
The birds.
The sanctuary. Yeah. And wonderful. And they're just going to release. They've just translocated a whole lot of kakapo, ne? And they're having a big fundraising, so I donated this work. And of course, I didn't want to do spirals. I didn't want to do a bird because
I understand.
Yeah. So I wanted to do the maunga, of course, Mangatotiri.
I love
one
it.
could go on, but I wanted to have the viewpoint from Google Earth here. I think we always look at maunga, especially in the Waikato anyway, roaming around. If you can through the fog, you mainly see the way the maunga horizontal and profile, but again, a different viewpoint.
I get
looking down on Mangatotiri with the Enzo circle around it. Small drawing, graphite pigment ink on paper. 50 centimeters by 40 centimeters. Yeah. So I wanted to challenge those viewpoints. People could read a lot into it. I like the notion of what the water does. Land remembers. So you've got this very liquid.
Nice. I like the splash you got on the side there.
Yeah. You can see the spray of splatter and plus little crosses of the manu leaving the whenua perhaps. But again, that water affects the land, the whenua. So I like that idea of yin and yang, soft, hard, water running down the maunga. So it's a small sketch that donated for them.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Because I'm whakapapa there. That's where the original wairere come from. And the original wairere come from whakapapa to that. And I spend a lot of time just sort of, and I'm amazed just looking at that piece of work because I can connect to it, making those connections.
Yes.
And they are whakapapa. And there's a lot of activities around because there's a lot of story, particularly around about the 1860s, and when they did the blockade, the British did the blockade right through Te Arawa and right down towards Taupo, down in Makatu, because all the gun dealers were coming across. And so everybody go down all the way down to Tūrangi and they cut across up to here. And that's always at the meeting point to everybody on their way to Oraka.
Oraka, I was going to say Oraka.
Just down the road.
Yeah. Amazing maunga. I love drawing. I've Eugene Cutter. And Brett Graham, they all whakapapa directly to Ngāti Koriki out of
Koriki.
Okay, so lovely maunga. I just love the whole idea of it, full of manu and all that. So that was a
nice.
Little.
I like the simplicity, but there's a lot of depth to it. I like the your colors. I really like their color. Nice one, bro.
Bit of a fluke, that one. It always happens like that.
I know all about that. I like that bit.
You try and get the ridges right, the sun right, the shadows right, and then you stuff it up with a bit of ink at the end, or not. And
meant to be.
So it's a bit scary, but so it's a lovely, the picture doesn't really capture it, but it's a very glowing orange, chrome yellow,
bright, glowed and tinned down to the side.
You got it. So it's a lovely little work, I think, which has the depth if it's needed, or from a distance it reads in other ways too.
James, what sort of ink was that?
That's not a Sumi ink. That was just a Schmecke, a very high quality pigment ink from Schmecke. A very, very high quality, German made. It's very high in pigment. Which gives it a strong glow if you want your ink to glow. There's many kinds of inks, and it's a very good quality ink. Lights, it has pretty good light sensitivity. It'll withstand a bit of light, but it's watered down, and just do the Enzo practice of taking a breath, holding your brush, literally attacking the paper, smashing it into the paper at the top, breathing out as you just quickly do a circle. I think Max Giblett and other artists do similar Zen practices with mark making. And I tried, I've got books full of them, and I just like that hours to draw the maunga, seconds to do the circle. Hard whenua, soft wai, so it's
beautiful.
Those counterbalances are important. I suppose, and just the last one I want to show, I don't want to take up too much time, but this is a large drawing I just finished the other day as well. It's large drawing 28. It's tiki pango. It's large black tiki. It's a large drawing. It's 2.5 meters by 1.5 meters. It's black pigment, wax, polymer graphite pencil, silver at the bottom, silver leaf at the bottom, and studio dust, all polished and ground into the paper with heat. And this is actually one drawing, but I've taken 2 photos of it in the studio just to show how the light changes the forms and the black. It actually turns into other drawings sometimes, and it's the second of 2 critical drawings I've done, large ones. The drawing I just did before this was a large drawing of the Book of Revelations, St. John's Revelations, written in reverse in Te Reo and English in reverse. So it was a 5-meter piece of paper, all illuminated with gold leaf and silver and ink. About those, I asked the question in these 2 drawings, they're bridging drawings, this one, Tikipango and Revelations, they mark a transition for me, as I've been asking that question, is what happens when whakapuno meets whakapapa? What happens when one's faith considered hits the facts of history, that grey space in the middle, that cognitive dissonance, those challenging thoughts we have, to the space between? What happens when these two human things come together? And it's a big esoteric topic, I know, and I could waffle on for ages, but I won't. But
No.
like that idea, it's like that idea of tote hininaro, tōna kite, tote wairua, tōna kite, tote kanohi, tōna kite, you know, the physical face, the wairua, the spirit of it, the soul, and then the mental aspects. The mental aspects, you know, hininaro, it always wants to innovate,
yes,
move and challenge, whereas the soul, our wairua, wants to stay home and be traditional. And the physical, our kanohi, is kind of caught between these two opposing forces. You know, you want to go, but you want to stay. You don't want to believe everything you think. You think things, but you don't want to believe everything you think. You know, as a young fellow, you always think, "Oh, I think she loves me." She probably doesn't love me. But you know, you're thinking all these things, and so this work reflects a lot of that. You've got whole lines at the top there. Flies. I've drawn little flies at the top there. Image. The hands. The trying to reach up to the atua.
But that's almost like Dani. It's a separation of you know, of Papa, you know, pushing out.
That whole transition. I've actually got a series of these hands along there, tama, to reflect that whakapapa of numbers. You know, rehua, the first born, is reaching up, and one is reaching down for the first born. Things like that. And at the bottom, it's kind of reverse of that Old Testament thing of the head of gold and the feet of clay. So here I've got the silver at the bottom and the flies at the top at the head. So I'm sort of reversing those old human notions. And so that's two of the last works I've done, really. That's my practice at the moment. Hope to expand it a bit more, but still doing. I like you hold it around it, because the interesting thing what you're saying is that how we bring the ancient to it, the ancient art, in the way how we add our own whakapapa to it, our own narrative and kōrero, an intricate part of it, and how you kind of presented in the last 4 or 5 minutes. It's I like it. You know, how do we tell our stories? How do we bring what they created 400-500 years ago? That's the challenge, Tama. How do we tell the story? How do we present their story and how you see it? No, thank you for that. I love telling those stories. I was telling Regan, it's probably dangerous to have artists on there, Tama, because a good percentage of what we say is all rubbish, you know. But a lot of it is spot on too, and it's good to hear what the artist has to say. But mainly, you know, the kupu. I'm open-minded. Hard to say it, but I agree. I think there's an interesting thought when it comes to these things, Tama, that you know, we make these marks. I was telling Regan, when you talk to your wānanga students, always say that, you know, taonga, our mahi, should have those. You could break it up in lots of ways rationally. We know it's all mythical, really, not rational. But there's a decorative level where people can look at it. A tourist can look and say, "Oh, that's Maori," you know, it's decorative. Matches my wallpaper nicely. You know, there's a symbolic level which tells the stories, and we can say this represents that, and there's a symbolic level which is all very nice. but then there's also deep esoteric levels, very personal. And I think that's what a lot of Ngāti Whiriki artists come from too. They have, and tohunga whakairo, rāranga, they all have that deep, esoteric, hermetic kōrero embedded in the artwork. That's secret and sacred, and isn't to be told anywhere, perhaps, but it's sitting in the artwork anyway. Yeah.
Well, it shows your softness, you know, your mahakitanga, you know, your rangimaria, and all of that, you know. Cool.
Wonderful. Thank you, James. Can you stop screen share, please?
Yes, I better get it down. Stop share. Yep. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, James. And wonderful to have that insight into your mahi. I see some remnants of Leonardo da Vinci as well, with the writing backwards. And sorry, I've just got someone busted into the room, a little person. But something's happening to my computer. Here we go. There we go. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Tēnā koutou. So I'd just like to switch over to Papa Tame. Tēnā koe te rangatira, Tame Iti, well-known freedom fighter and standing up for people's rights, mai rāno. It's wonderful to have you here, and a extra special honor, really, because to me, he oriti koe ki te manu kōtuku, ne, he nui tō mahi, whakahirahira hoki tō mahi ki puta no i te ao, nō reira wai mare tātou e whai wā ana koe ki waini a tātou e Papa Tame. No tūhoi, engari, mau anō whanonga e whākipa ki e rātu o ngā iwi mōhio he maha. Hoi anō, ka miharo hoki ki te whakarongo ki ngā kōrero e pāna ki o mahi toi hoki. Ko roa nei koe mahi ana. It's beautiful to see he reo tō te toi, ne? Our art has its own language, and it's beautiful to see that you found another language to express those key messages that you have been fighting for throughout your lifetime, because art transcends boundaries and transcends just a reo a waha. It hits the ngākau, it hits the mind and makes us think outside the square. So tēnā koe Papa Tame. Just like to pass the raka over to you, and love to hear your kōrero pāna ki tō toi, me ngā mea kei te piring kia kōrero kia i tēnei rā.
Kia ora anō tātou, e ko rau ka mai nei ki runei tēnei o kaupapa hōtaka mahi toi. Ki o tātou nā mauna, ki o tātou nā awa, ki o tātou nā tini ai tō mate, uhu ai te motu rātou ki a rāta. Koe ko tātou tēnei nā ori o rātou ma, ko tātou nei. Nō reira, miha tana ki a koe. Hey, I really like talking to James. I could chat with him for bloody hours. You know, it's those conversation. Really, really important having those kōrero, the conversation, because they enable us to really look in what this future going to look like for all of us. In a state of creativity. Kei roto tātai I tō tātou nā ira atuatanga. So I'm a late starting art, but I always love art. And always love, you know, if you hang out with fellas like Hone Tūpare, you know, and so, you know, I hang out with fellas like Hone Tūpare way back in the early 70s. And because we both share the same political views. We're both ex-communist member of the Communist Party. We come through our background as Marxist, Leninist, Mao Zedong, you know, all of those characters of those times. You know, and so politics always been my real interest. And so through those experiences and having those relationship with him, I mean, I had no idea I ended up to be where I am today. Yeah, it just happened. Those things, it just all of a sudden. But in the beginning of my artwork, and as a kid, we used to do a lot of comics, a lot of stuff there back in the days. We used to have the Phantom, the Ghost and Walk. We used to have all those propaganda, anti-Japanese, anti-German, in the British against the German. So we used to do a lot of those images during my days. And the reason we used to work on those images because a lot of our uncles and papa was come from the Māori battalion. Yeah. So we do, so I used to remember, I look at my mate, got it. They got fast, they're able to do stuff. And I never ever like to be second best. So if you're better than me, I'm not going to go there. A little bit fuck up, mine look really dumb. So I had that sort of kind of anxiety as a kid, so I didn't do that. But so time's come a long way, and so part of the journey, and I guess that meeting with people like Selma Muru, Ralph Hotere, many of those artists, and right through their whole period, because I went to some of those first artists and writers conference in Te Kaha. I think that was in 1973.
All right, Tika.
Yeah, that was down at Te Kaha. So I hitchhiked there. Wow. I hitchhiked over there, and then I got picked up by a guy called Dr. Sinclair. Yeah. Oh. You remember Dr. Sinclair?
I know the name.
Yeah. So he's my mate though. So he picked me up there, just outside down Waimana there. He said, "Oh, because we know each other, And he said, "Oh, so we just cruised down to and then I met up with a whole lot of artists."
Well, you're lucky you got picked up, Tama. I remember your brother grizzling once why no one was picking him up. Then he realized he had his rifle across his back. And no one wanted to pick up Timatiku Iti because you want to go with a rifle.
Yeah. I do the crazy stuff like that, but all good, And but I think that and then what's through this journey as an artist, I started to understand more about myself. To become the co-creator. Kai roto koe I tō ira atuatanga, ira atua ira tanata. So it's around creating this space. I mean, people used to always say, "Oh, are you a Māori artist?" And I say, I am not a Māori artist. I am an artist. So we have those kind of conversation with people, and they kind of expect you to do, koru and little wee things. Well, I'm not quite that particular artist, and So part of the journey when I finally, because what actually happened to me getting into art, I went to Hewlett's conference in Canada, and so at that particular conference, there was a workshop, and you walked in there at the door. There's a notice there: leave all your audio then on the door. Don't come in there, but bring with you your eyes and your ears. And you go in there. So I left everything there. I didn't want to go there, and so you kind of walked in. So a lot of that particular workshop is how to talk to children and how to talk to kids through art and working through their trauma. And so I went through. Wow, it's just amazing. It's very simple. And so so anyway, ko hoki mau ki te kaina. So I returned home because nobody would employ me during that period of time, and I was a little bit too radical, So I had to become creative to try and create my own tino rangatiratanga, and then trying to build that. And so and then one day, because then I was working with Muldoon's policy, detached youth worker. And so part of my work is taking, rangatahi ki te nahere. And then a mother walked in and walked with her son, 80-year-old. And so she wanted me to have a chat with the boy. And so I immediately reflected upon to that experience I had in Canada. And I go, oh, wow, And so anyway, So we had a chat to him. Oh, you look we get to go really did it. Kaki mai art, yeah, too. And so we scheduled ourselves, and so anyway we did the first schedule with him, and then he arrived there. I said to him, draw me a picture while you are here. Yeah, and so you got all your colors there, you work on it. So and give you 20 minutes and you work on this. And so the 20 minutes over, we book it here, so we covered it. And the second schedule, then I open it. And then I look at the picture and I go, wait there, blah, 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 blah. How dare me, blah, blah, blah. That's all I was doing. He was telling the story. Really amazing. Well, so we went through that whole process. It might have been three meetings together. So at the end of it, I said to him, you can spit on it, you can rip it to bits, you can throw it away, what you want. How do it here. And so he gave it to me. So I took it off him and then he followed me. So we went down to the fireplace, put a match to it and burned it and let it go. Yeah, and so went through. I just learned something doing that exercise with that 8-year-old. And I thought, well, and I'm really talking about myself. So I did a lot of therapy on myself, working on art, just going through that whole process. So I started painting, and I started painting, and that's how I started painting. So one day, and then I was giving all the artwork to people. And they paint them all. No, and they take it away. And so, and then one day a mate of mine, Chair Stubblety, walked in. And there's also a very good artist. And he just left the police force and he came in. And so no, wait, not mine. It's all mine. Oh, yeah. What do you do with them? It's all, just give them away. And don't give them away, he said. And they say, why? You should have an exhibition. You know, I have no thought at all into doing that. And so I went through. And I think, so I did a civil kind of collaboration with a whole lot of two-way artists. But I did my first solo art exhibition was in the Arch Hill Gallery in Auckland. It's called Blackboard. And Blackboard was around writing 100 lines. I would not speak Maori. And I did this piece of work that I did during that period of time. And also I through the road button. But I tell you though, you know, that was one of the most scariest experiences that I ever had. You know, because it's exposing yourself.
Nice. Solo.
Yeah. You know, you expose yourself, and I started getting all kind of a little bit whakama, you know. I'm not a disciplined artist like yourself, as you explained. I didn't have all of those, other than I'm an interior decorator by trade. Yeah. I actually learned a lot about, you know, architectural and all that in the 60s. Which a lot of my teachers, my kaiako from Finland, Poland, Scottish, British, so they bought a lot of it, you know, because I did my training in Christchurch, as they wanted to build Christchurch as the English city. So I had an idea all about. So I'm already kind of had this sort of thought in my mind, and also some of the early artists I met through there was Iriwera Nia. Kura Rawiri days, and Kura was also down there. Wow. They were doing so they were also a member of Ngā Tamato. So, yes. I've been having these conversations for a long time. And so I had an idea in here, but I never ever thought that where I am today, and this is where I end up to, and you know, and I'm going to die there, you know, I'm not going to go anywhere else, you know, and so. And in particularly for the last 2 years, in the last 2 years of the lockdown, it kind of changed the whole kind of perspective in the way we kind of conduct and look at art in the way. So I'm just at the beginning of it. You know, I'm just at the beginning of it. So so I don't really have much time to go to sleep. So I spend really my time just trying to create work. So in my latest work, I mean, so I work on all the first lot of work I worked there. I did a lot of conversation with Emily Karaka, and because with Emily, you know, my crazy relations, but she's a mean artist. I love her work, and so I had some really chat with her, and in the ways, because I needed some kind of guidelines, because I really wanted to do big work, so I put big canvas. And I had to go up on the ladder and work on that. So I started doing oil for a lot of when I first started working on art. So I work on big canvas, on oil. But I've also been doing collaboration work with different artists in having conversation with people like Owen Dippy, young Parker fellow from Colorado.
Yes, I know. Yep.
Yeah. Interesting guy. So I really like working, doing collaboration, and having a conversation. It gives me a different perspective, and also having a different kind of conversation with that particular artist. Very good, and it's realist. So there's a fine line between fine art and mural and sort of kind of stuff like that. So we've been having those sort of kind of conversation. What is art? You know, some of our artists make it a little bit fucking I went to that school down in blah blah blah, but it's all good. You know, and I don't mind those sort of types of conversations. So I've been having this conversation with doing some work, and we did a couple of weeks here in Whakatane, one in Tāneatua. In the northern end of the Uruwera, we did an image of a kuia Pokimoana, or mate ai ai tēnei tau. And so we wanted to put out images and also having those whakapapa to it. And part of that, you know, and the interesting thing doing that particular work, because I asked all the women in the Ruatake, who do you think is the face of Tūhoe? And they all say this queer. I was expecting them to pick somebody from Ruatake. Yeah, but they like their face. And I go, oh, well. And so after having that conversation with Nawahine, Nakuyo Ruatake, then I went to see her. And then she was a little bit pakama about it. And they say, and so we did that work. The hardest work for me, I mean, Owen just take a shot of the fish, and then he finally created. I had the hardest work because I didn't know how to do it. I had to try and work it out what this looked like. What did the collaboration look like? Yeah. So I learned from that experience and working with Owen Tepe. And in the last 3-4 years ago, I had worked with Early Apple, and that was really a really interesting collaboration. Working with their koroa, you know, and people will say, "What you want to work with those park here for?" You know, they sort of, and I'm not too sure why people talk like that. But and the purpose of this collaboration with him was he was brought up in Tāneatua. And as a child, he used to bike from Tāneatua to Ruatoki and hang out with those half-caste away from Ruatoki. What's his name? Milroy, Jimmy Milroy. Yeah, the Parihuia Milroy. So their father was a Pākehā, Free Milroy. And so he goes and hang out with those half-caste two-way Pākehā. Yeah. So he wanted to do a collaboration in memory of that. And then, in fact, in memory of his auntie who used to run the shop back in the 40s, just after the Second World War. So it was really interesting with the Korowa Pākehā and how we kind of work out and what do they look like. So I did a lot of digital work in working with bringing some digital work. You know, you can download an app called Ruatoki, and you see there's work there. So I did that on the confiscation line. and having all my artwork in and on that. So if you go down, so I've been doing a lot of work on that too, in digital and bringing that. And so just hold up, I'll show you the painting that was part of the collaboration with the boat. Yeah, very simple. It did that work. It's so-called homeowner. He done 16 languages. He did it right throughout the world. And it's called Tumanopo, the future, Kai, way, security, homeowner, and clothing, kaka. Very simple thing. And the color of that there, that's the Ruakinama colors, the yellow and the blue. And so I put them, so I kind of created the idea in having a, I took me a while to get my head around it, and how to do these collaborations with these, interesting guy called Billy Apple. Because when I first, I heard of his name, Billy Apple, and didn't know much about it. He said, this fellow Billy Apple, and I went to see some of his work. The first work that I first started was a piece of string, for real, just a piece of string, and tacked on the other end and tied up the yarn. That was his exhibition, and I had a look at it, and I go, what the hell?
Limbo under it or something.
Yeah.
I didn't realize Billy had that connection, that whakapapa back to Ruapuki. Wow.
Yeah. So that's our collaboration. So that was he kind of didn't realize it because I tried to explain to him because I'm having this idea. Yeah. And so my idea, I have my boy, then I wake up, I have a chat with someone, maybe Python, and they keep there. So we have the sort of kind of, so part of that, having a conversation, a connected conversation with people. They can see that. So there are many eyes, the way we see things, the way we hear things. So creating the piece of work. And so, all of that. So,
it's very important. Yeah, very important. Very important.
Yeah. So I just got heaps of work, like I've got work for the next 2 years, really working. So I started on this steel that I really love working with the steel. It's heavy, it's got a lot of texture onto it, and you can hydro to it, working with heat and all of that, just amazing. So the guy I'm working, and I met this guy, a Pākehā fella, young Pākehā fella, well, he's not young, he's mid-40, and played rugby in America, and he's a picture welder, but he's an artist, but he had difficulties finding people that can have a chat with him, just like us, we can have a chat. And so we met up. And we met up there because I was looking for a welder to cut this car. It's another piece of work I'm working on now. That one happened to the year after next, so I'm working on that. So I met up with him. Then he told me he was an artist, and he showed me his work. And so we've been working together for well over a year now. And so it's an intricate part of the development of the work that I'm working with steel. And project, this particular steel I'm working in, and so I think that's where I'm going. I'm building a whole lot of tira, the tini with the mano, and so there's no end in the work that we can do. So I'm quite excited. So I can't go to sleep. So everybody say you should go to sleep, but I always have this theory: the while you go to sleep, never to wake up. And so, quite a typical. Yeah. So, and I've been working on a project. I had some people, I've been doing a lot of, in the early days, I went to China, Hone Tupare, myself, Timmy Maipi, Amarauhihi, and Willie Wilson. There was the first Maori delegation to ever visit China since the revolution in 1949. So we were we were guests on Mount Sitong, and so we went across there. So they've been able to have a chat with Toy and I about that. So there's a possibility. I'm doing an exhibition. In fact, it is going to happen of the 50 years ago, 1973. So next year it's 73, 50 years ago, and doing an exhibition in Beijing. Over that part of the world. So I have seen some work in China about 2019, and so we're working on that for China and also for Havana. It's a possibility we go to Havana to Cuba because I got Fidel Castro on my arm here.
Fantastic.
Another artist who's those are all my heroes,
Havana.
Yeah. So smoke cigars and.
It's interesting how even we talk about, as artists, we talk about forms and shapes and materials, but even your color can be so political and loaded and messaged as well, because you talked about the red and the blue with your whakapapa connections, and yet the red in China has a very powerful kaupapa in there.
Yeah.
And then red outside of China has another kaupapa.
And I think we all adopt this different ideology in the last 200 years. And then some of us support the colonial kind of ideology. It's a journey we all go through, and how do we navigate ourselves without us getting too hung up about all the ups and downs. But more importantly, I never had this particular thought I have now. Back then, to me, no, they said one way, so you had to let go. And then I think one of the things that part in what we do, we had to let go of all the other stuff in order for us to kind of engage and move ourselves forward and how we use it. And our roles and responsibility as an artist, and how we are the storyteller. We the one get the tuku, the whakapapa, the whole, make those connections, and so much of it. We can't do everything, but we can do what we can, in order to have your take on that, the kōrero. It's just like you're talking about your tiki, and I was really interested just to hear those kōrero, how you see it and how you feel it, and bring the split colors around that. And the little splatters on the side there, all intricate, because I can see them. And so my eyes always looking at a little very details. My eyes, I can see these things. And one of the things when I decided to do art seriously, because other people say you should forget about all your politics. You just should go and paint. And so what I did, I went to every art gallery you can ever think of, in Aotearoa. And so I went there, had a look at it, have a chat to the artist, and I even went there. I had $1,000 in the envelope, so I went to hustle somebody who can give me a ticket for $1,000. So I got one for $850 to go to see Van Gogh's work in Amsterdam, and so I went to 5 different locations. That's it, so you kind of sit there. And for me, going to Europe, it can give me an insight in how they see things, in the way they bring the right and the light, in the early artists of those times. And and so I met a lot of artists in Amsterdam, and I met artists that they have whakapapa for 500 years. They are intricate part of those whakapapa. And so I'm still having those conversations with those guys from Germany, from Holland, from all that part of the world. A really interesting part of the world in Europe. I really love Europe because I did a lot of work there as a performing artist. So bring all of those arts and performing arts, music are all intricate part of what we do. And so I do all of that.
It's interesting. I love how both of you have actually, even though your kaupapa, the core of the kaupapa is really, you know, Te Ao Māori or your people, and based in Aotearoa here, you've both really branched out and explored, you know, ngā mahi toi no waho atu i Aotearoa. So outside of Aotearoa as well, you've both really considered and looked at art forms and, you know, different ones, not just stayed in small. You've gone out and then been able to bring all those gems and, you know, that knowledge back into your own artwork to share your kōrero and your stories. I really love that. And you can see the depth in both of your work because of that. Do you have any insights that you'd like to share from going outside and then coming back in?
Oh, yeah. I think we all experience it. It's a go in and out. Ki runa, ki raro, ki roto, ki waho. And then it's how we navigate ourselves around all of these spaces to avoid the booby traps and the landmines that's in front of us. And sometimes there's a kind of trigger some stuff there for me. Sometimes I find that art is a good political, a good way to articulate your thinking, and in the way that you even just two things that can work with me as a performing artist. I mean, just a simple thing like a chair. So I did one called a chair. And the chair for me is that we adopted this whole concept of the way we conduct our hapu iwi whānau thing, where we have a chairman, we have a secretary, it become a whakapapa. Yeah, and so we introduce it. So we, you know, how we do. So I done some work around that in confronting the way the so-called iwi are now become the kaupara, you know. And so, but it's really interesting, good for us to kind of provoke and having, or people trying to avoid to have this conversation. Yeah. So that's why I love art. Art is that we can hear with this. You might just hear a red dot in the middle of the road. It could be something like that, you know. So we done a lot of that stuff, put in the middle of the paddock, you know, and do those kind of stuff. So I've done stuff like burning cars on the side of the road. Part of the burning of the cars is the illustration of what they done to us 200 years ago, scholarship policy. So really good using that, you know, and all of that, to provoke, and it's a provoke in our internal, all of those things, and kind of, then we can, why is Tame Iti doing that kind of stuff? So it provoke a conversation and allow us to, you know, and so it open up the book, or our people just kind of try to avoid it. Yeah. So you create something that they can look at it, and I guess that and it would think about the way our tipuna created all of these images of their popo and their teko teko. They weren't just, but they were able to illustrate the internal stuff, you know, and you go, so all of that, the article that come out of that, you know, and to show that. And how do you show that? The puku stuff, the internal stuff, not what you see here. So they didn't really create images that look just like you. You're actually looking at the inside of us. So when you see the popo, so how did they come with that idea? You know, what actually drove them into that, to their point of view? Yeah. So that's a real challenge really for me, trying to create and help me as an artist here in 2022, able to you know, create something that that people can remember. And that's why I don't really do too many kōrero and stuff like that, you know, because they are stuff that, you know, with respect. You know, and I'm always interested in where do we take ourselves in what we're creating. that will people remember in 100 years time, they can remember James and they can remember the young woman, the young lady here, and then what is that we can create. Yeah. Quite like
James, is that a part of your work as well, provoking? And I remember seeing your image of Tawhio, and the scale of it was so huge it filled up a whole room. Is that a part of your mahi as well?
I like to think so. Just a couple of quick things. Beautiful kōrero. I think to start with, you know, the ha, the breath, the pukanga ne. But before the child is born, the first breath, they use the word draw. They draw breath, even a play on the kupu ne. So why do they use the word draw? To draw breath. So you're drawing in and out. So you travel in and out. You're working on the outside overseas, but you're also working within. I think the politics of things can be a very internal politics as well as an external country politics as well. Like I spoke about in that big black tiki form there. It's a lot of that is about internal intersections, that internal wars even perhaps that happen between nations, but can also happen within the person. I'm starting to forget the second one, but the framing of it all. I mean, there are two important things I've seen on YouTube, and three really, three of them have both brought me to tears. Tama's kōrero on mana, on the TED Talk, a brief snippet of that tribunal coming into Ruatoki, I think it was, on the carts with the burning cars, Tama there covered in clay, the gun shooting the flag on the ground. And then one of your spokesmen said, and I was so impressed when he said, I think it was a court context, but they were saying
it was a tribunal visit to Ruatoki.
Fantastic performance work, if you could call it that.
It is.
The tribunal was so shocked at the guns, horses, haka, mud, spit, fire, that they actually feared for their life. And your spokesman said, well, we wanted them to feel exactly how we felt at the conversation. And that impressed me so much. And then the third one was when you climb up a ladder to present a horse blanket to the government. I think a lot of our young people have to pick up on the subtlety, the importance of detail, of context, of framing. Like, you know, I could be angry and just throw the blanket. I could have stormed out. I could have, even more importantly, been offended. But I loved what you did. No, stay, climb the ladder, physically climb a ladder with the audience below you. So what is that saying? To me, that shows great puhunga ability to understand context and framing and what to do and what not to do. And I just find that a great inspiration with the art. Now, with my large drawings, for example, why the hell draw them large? Well, if it's big, it's supposed to be powerful and monumental. Big stone monuments, it's big, it's forever. But a paper is very fragile, so it has a nice yin yang again. You know, it's big, but it's fragile. It's powerful, King Tawhio. But it's fragile as well, as a piece of paper. I like that counterbalance anyway.
I understand.
There's some power and magic, some mythological weight that happens when you play with those counterbalances of heavy, light, male, female, light, dark, positive, negative. My thinking of to innovate, but my soul wanting to stay. Part of me wanting to sail over the horizon in my waka, but part of me wants to stay back on the beach
Yeah.
Yeah, those sort of tensions can create a mythology, a story that an artist can tell
Yes.
in a very subtle way. And it's in those details sometimes that students and others miss out on. But a true tohunga, I think, ticks a lot of boxes of details, like climbing a ladder. We could stand there and just do a haka. No.
Yeah.
Rugby teams do that, you know.
Yeah.
We're more than a rugby team. This
Yeah.
is deeper. So we'll burn the car. We'll do this and that, you know. Fantastic.
Yeah, well, I think that's why I really like about what we do. Is life is very theatrical in the framework of theatrical, and that's how I see things. And how do you make use of it? That's and I'm sure our tipuna did the same thing. Haka was how they expressed themselves.
Right.
The more ki te haka taua and all of that. They're all a formula. And so what I have learned over the years is to develop, to be able to see things just like that. You should be able, your mind should be open to that. To use it because it's a whole concept between Rono and Tumatauina, which you provoke, and then you bring that in the space. In what is Tumatauina, what is wrong. So you pull those two things together, and it doesn't have to be a taiaha, it doesn't have to be a tepa, because you already got that, you know, and so it's a moment, because when you walk into the space, I mean, I walk into the space and I had to go like this. I'm not going to fucking look at that, you know. You know, and there's immediately response. What do? The crown is sitting up on the stage in the Opotiki in the marae, and everybody had to look up like that. It doesn't work that way. And I go, And I asked the local, hey, because of that. And they said, all of those are the moments. And then, because then they are intricate part of their whakapapa. Not just me, but all of that intricate. So they supplied me with a ladder, and they were kind of hesitant. They wanted to know, so they didn't, but I can see it in their face, in their eyes. Their face and their eyes are already talking, asking those questions. So they kind of let it go. So they're doing those sort of types of action. And then when you do that, and then you got those eyes, it's a physical thing. And then you do. So to me, that's theatrical. We do it all the time in how we use the space for us to enable to provoke and to challenge each other, which is challenging ourselves.
Like that whakatauki, kia matara, you know, be upstanding, be aware, be open-minded. That's what the artist must be able to do. And it's beyond just simply telling the story, ne? Like I remember sometimes, you know, you go to whare tupuna, whare nui and such, and you say, oh, symbol, heke, ribcage, tauhuhu, backbone, ancestral symbology, symbology. But I remember one kaumātua telling me, well, actually, it's a black hole.
Yes.
And you come through the maho, it's like an event horizon. And it's the entire universe compressed in, beyond stories, and even stories that are told not in the third person. I notice a lot of our culture stick to the third person kōrero in performance, in visual. The story is told in the third person. Why don't we tell some stories in the first person? Even harder in the second and fourth person. We always talk about, I tell the students sometimes, you know, oh, this is a story of rangi papa, separation, te me. Well, what if you tell that story from the viewpoint of Pane?
Yeah.
From the first person or from another viewpoint. I think this can expand the culture and our stories and how we react. And as an artist, you've got to be open-minded.
Yeah.
How am I telling the story? Why is it always in the third person?
Yeah.
To me. Did our tupuna go inside and tell it from the first person?
Yeah.
These
Yeah,
are
well,
the questions.
Yeah, well, even that whole thing about the Pohiri to the Waitangi tribunal. I mean, we spent 3 days having a conversation. And the good thing about creating a work like that, because you still got to put a lot of time and energy and very clear in your mind what you're trying to create. And it doesn't often happen. I don't think I'll be able to do it again. I don't know, but with those moments to tell a story, the crown is coming over. Imagine yourself 150 years ago, they came and burn your house down. So you got to have those sort of kind of conversation. So you got to be that to provoke their soul. So you go there. I don't have to show this fellow how to do the haka. They're already there. They're already part of it. So all you do to create, it took 2 to 3 days. There's 2 of us, myself and the fellow called Hue Rangi. He's a carver, he's a teacher of the whakapapa. And so we kind of collaborate together, put some thought around. How about we go there and meet them down on the confiscation line? Then we might meeting them at the gate. At their usual kind of willow and and bang.
Yeah.
Why don't we do this? We take with us this energy to the confiscation line. So that's the line that we go in. So we did. So we got a horse cart. That's the second time I've done burning cars. My first one was the Urupatu. I did a work with other artists when I was up in Auckland. So I brought the cars in the game. So they were open to their thinking. So you gotta share some thoughts. So they answered. They got a few. So you kind of provoke them. So you got 500 to 800 people, and they say, "Tukuna te riri." So it's a place there you can kind of let it go. It's a safe place for your riri. After 150 years, and here they are, and you create that space. And so as soon as I went boom with the shotgun, I mean, I had the smallest gun. Everybody had a 303, a 308, and all of that.
And a pellet shot.
I was the only one who got a bloody arrested for bloody having the gun. Yeah. And so, but that's all part of that performance. And you get a feel of it. And so it was, and the good thing about it was all the kids were there. They will be the storytellers, and the kids that were there at that time, whether it be 2-year-old, 5-year-old, those kids will always remember that day.
Right.
And so they become our whakapapa people. They will carry the, I was there.
Right. We are
hanging down with my nanny or my papa.
Right.
It's a very hot day. All of that. So that's all part of that, creating that. Yes, so that's how we tell our story. It's a movement because it's theatrical, it's artistic in the way that we illustrate in telling our stories. And great stuff. I like it.
We are memory, absolutely. It's part of being human. We are memory, and we are those stories. Absolutely, and creating a space for those stories is so important. I've said this quote. Those who know me.
Yeah.
My quote is Charles Brash, way back in the 1950s, a great intellectual out of Dunedin, said that a country has come of age when it learns to live by the light of its own imaginative order. And so if an artist can create a space for that imaginative order, that order of telling that story in our own way, our whole country is coming of age, is blossoming, is growing. Not just simply illustrating stories in the third person, but creating a space where you're actually feeling it in the first person. Or second person or fourth person. But yeah, it's all whakapapa, it's all those spaces, it is memory. These are key things, eh? Yeah. Kia ora, Tama. I can imagine. I've bounced off Ngā hui e te awa kotoku ne and Keretiro tangata, Jerry. They
Yeah,
all said they flattered with you. Man, I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall at those Auckland University days in your flat where you're starting up mana moto hakean.
yeah.
These are amazing.
But I like working with this. I design all of these. I gotta say, we're working with clothes. If you have hats, clothes are integral part of your performance. I mean, life for me personally, life is theatrical. We live it every day. Now, how often we go in the morning? We go. It's a Monday today. What am I going to wear today? What color am I going to wear today? What shoes am I going to wear today? Shall I have lipstick today? You know, all of those things. You work there. So and it's to me that we live it. And we live it, we smell it, we eat it, we provoke it, and and make it really interesting. And and that's why I really like going to places like in Europe. In Europe, it helps me to look at other approaches and other challenges, and looking at and all of those 15th century arts back in the 1500s and all that, just amazing stuff. It just helped me to kind of process a lot of stuff with what's happening over here. And so I've been doing that. This is a Napoleon look, in Napoleon. I'm doing a lot of, I even got a Napoleon hat over here, so I get all those kind of made up.
Fantastic.
And the thing for me, for the history of Europe, because during the 1820s, when Napoleon went down to Spain, the British were down there, but all through to Russia and all during that period, they brought a lot of those guys over here. They came here. Major von Tipsy, the artist, came from through that period of time, and they came over here. And so, what I really liked there, because I like the amazing stuff, crazy stuff. But the war in Europe, and it's still happening. But the war in Europe during that period of time, they had beautiful clothes. They were dressed to kill. Yeah. You know, they had a hat, they got a coat, and you get bloody stabbed in the bloody with a knife. You know, but they brought Major von Tipsy and all those fellas came from those whakapapa. You know, because they brought their behavior in the way that they thought we were going to come and show this native, blah, 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 blah. But Tito Kawari dealt with that. You know, that's another story. Yes. Anyway,
tēnā kōrua. I could just go, let this kōrero go on all day. Actually, I don't want to stop it, and we've actually gone over our time. It's now 1:15. But I just really want to mihi to you both. Those gems that you've both shared today really are inspiring, and my mind's going ping, ping, ping. But just those beautiful, rich kōrero that are coming out, you know, that if you want to do art, then do it. You know, that it's a way to share our kōrero. Both of you, you know, that example of delving really deep into your kaupapa. It's not about just, one day you're an artist and you're famous. You know, you come with a long history of your kaupapa and your mahi, and that's what enriches the mahi. And I just want to say a big thank you to you both for sharing. You know, I love the kōrero, papatame, you know, that art is a safe space for our riri. You know, that art is, you know, can heal our trauma. You know, those things are profound, and they're right there in front of us, you know, at our fingertips. Art isn't something that's over there, you know, it's something we can all achieve and do and heal from it, and bring it out of ourselves and really look at it and analyze it, you know, and share it with others so that they may grow and connect. So just a big mihi to you both. Do you both have paku kōrero I muri te mutu?
No. Yeah. Well, for me, that we come into the new year, or the o Matariki, and I'm looking forward to the new challenges that we will face in the way that we definitely there has been some real changes. It's going to be a real challenge, and so thank you to you, Kare, and thank you to James. I love the conversation, and I can talk all day. I'm sure James can too. Anyway, and it'll be good to come over sometime, and I'll come over there just down the road.
Right.
Yeah. You know?
We might do a collaboration now that I'm with, Friday the 13th and Napoleon. But yes, absolutely.
Oh, I'd love to see that collaboration. Woo. Hey, James, the kaha and the fragile, kano ngā tahi, hey, and the interplay.
Paper and steel. There's something going on there with paper and steel.
Yeah.
We'll be looking out for it. Awesome.
Pleasure.
Well, tēnā rawa atu kia kōrua ngā mihi nui, and that ends our kōrero toi for today. Please, those of you who have joined up today, join in next week and we'll have some more amazing speakers. But I just want to tuku te mihi kia kōrua tahi, tēnā kōrua, ngā mihi nui kia kōrua. Hei, ko nei.
Bye, Marina.